In this short video, we're going to have a look at question 5 from exercise 1107. It's to do with selling and buying shares, and a few girls had trouble with it, so I'll try and explain it to you here. Question says, Zelly bought 40,000 shares in Ozstar at 75 cents each. For buying or selling, her stockbroker charged 2.5% brokerage for the first $15,000 of shares and 0.75% thereafter. A. Calculate the total purchase cost of Zelly's shares. And part B. If Zelly collects a dividend yield of 4.8% and then sells all her shares for $1.09 each, calculate her total earnings after costs. So I think the best way to approach this kind of question is to draw up a little table. And on one side of the table, we're going to put all her income. So that's any money that she earns from the shares. And on the other side of the table, we're going to list all of her expenses or all of her costs. So part A says calculate the total purchase cost of Zelly's shares. Okay, so she buys 40,000 shares and they are 75 cents each, and that's going to cost her $30,000. But in addition to the cost of the shares, she needs to pay brokerage. She needs to pay 2.5% for the first 15,000 and 0.75% thereafter. So we do 15,000 times 2.5%. Remember, we have to convert the 2.5% to a decimal. To do that, we divide it by 100, which means we move the decimal place to the left. So it becomes 0.025. And then, of course, because the shares cost her $30,000, there's 15,000 remaining. And that's charged at 0.75%. Remember, we've also got to convert that to a decimal, so we divide it by 100 again, and we get 0.075, and that gives us a total brokerage of $487.50. So for part A, the total cost of her shares is the 30,000 plus the brokerage of $487.50. So it's 30,000 plus 487.50, giving us a purchase cost of $30,487.50. Now we're going to have a look at part B. So for the income, well, we see that she earns a dividend yield of 4.8%. That's always 4.8% of the purchase cost, which we said was 30,000. So the dividend that she earns is 30,000 times 4.8%. Remember, again, we've got to convert that 4.8% to a decimal, so we multiply it by 0.048, and that gives us a dividend of $1,440. She then sells the shares. Now she's got 40,000 shares that she sells for $1.09 each. So we're going to go 40,000 times $1.09, and that gives us a grand total there of 43,600. Now remember, when she sells the shares, she has to pay brokerage. So she has to pay 2.5% for the first $15,000 of this sale price, and then she needs to pay 0.75% for the remainder. So to work that out, that goes in the expenses column. It's 15,000 times 0.025, and then again we have to do 0.75% of the remainder. To work out the remainder, all we need to do is 43,600 minus that first 15,000, and then of course we times this by 0.0075, and that means that the brokerage when she sells the shares is going to cost her $589.50. So now we can see that, well, the total income is $1,440 plus 436. So that's the money from the dividend and the money when she sells the shares. So that means that she earns a grand total of $45,040. And And then we have a look at all her expenses over here. So remember, her expenses were, well, the actual initial cost of buying the shares, the brokerage when she bought the shares, and then the brokerage when she sold the shares. So we just add these amounts together again. Plus 487.50 plus 589.50. And that means that her total expenses are $31,077. So now we can work out her total earnings after her costs. So to work out her total earnings, well, her total earnings are going to equal her total income minus her total expenses. So of course that's just $45,040 minus the $31,077, and that gives us her total earnings that are $13,963. I hope this helps.